The marinated turkey had been my signature dish for 42 years. Every Thanksgiving, my spice-rubbed creation drew praise from family and friends alike. Even after Margaret passed, I kept our tradition alive, perfecting her recipe year after year. But this would be the last turkey I'd cook for my son's household. I should have seen it coming. Ever since James married Victoria 3 years ago, things had changed. My son, once the boy who'd called just to share a new recipe he discovered, now barely had time for our Sunday phone calls. Victoria, with her designer kitchen and celebrity chef cookbooks, had gradually taken over every family gathering, except for Thanksgiving. This year, they insisted on hosting at their new mansion in the suburbs. "Dad, it's time to pass the torch," James had said, though his voice carried an apologetic note that should have warned me. Victoria wants to start her own traditions. Still, they asked me to cook the turkey. "No one does it like you, Dad," James pleaded. So I spent 3 days preparing, using the same ceramic roasting pan Margaret and I had bought during our first year of marriage. The morning started well enough. I arrived early, turkey already perfectly browned and resting. Victoria was directing her hired help like a general commanding troops, her perfectly manicured hands gesturing at elaborate flower arrangements and place settings. "Oh, Mr. Wilson," she said, barely glancing my way. "Just take that to the kitchen. And do be careful not to scratch the marble counters." I bit back a response about having cooked professionally longer than she'd been alive. After retiring as a head chef, I consulted for restaurants across 3 states. But Victoria had never bothered to learn anything about my background. To her, I was just James's aging father who needed to be managed. The kitchen was a showcase of modern appliances, most looking barely used. My old chef's instincts noted the untouched knife block, the pristine cookware that had never seen real work. This was a kitchen for show, not for cooking with love. I was arranging my serving tools when Victoria swept in, followed by her mother Diana. Both wore matching designer dresses that probably cost more than my monthly pension. "Mother, doesn't the kitchen look perfect?" Victoria beamed. "Though we really should have gotten the platinum fixtures instead of just gold." Diana sniffed, eyeing my well-worn chef's apron with barely concealed disdain. "Dear, why is your father-in-law setting up in here? Shouldn't the help be in the service kitchen downstairs?" My hands stilled on the carving knife. Service kitchen. The house was big, but I hadn't realized it had separate kitchens for help. Victoria's laugh tinkled like expensive crystal. "Oh, James insisted his father cook the turkey this year. You know how men get about their little traditions. But don't worry, I've made it clear he's to stay out of sight during the party. We don't want to embarrass ourselves in front of the club members." They continued chatting as if I wasn't there, discussing their upcoming country club events and Victoria's plans to remodel the outdated kitchen they'd installed just last year. James appeared briefly, already dressed in the expensive suit Victoria had probably chosen. "Dad, everything okay in here?" He glanced nervously between me and his wife. "James, darling," Victoria cut in before I could respond, "your father knows his place. Don't worry about us. Go greet the Hendersons. They've just pulled up." My son hesitated, something of the boy I'd raised flickering in his eyes. But then Victoria touched his arm, and he turned away without another word. The guests arrived in waves of designer perfume and artificial laughter. I could hear them exclaiming over Victoria's decorations, her imported tablecloths, her crystal stemware. Not one person mentioned the aroma of perfectly roasted turkey that filled the house. I was just finishing the gravy, made from scratch using Margaret's recipe, when Victoria returned with an apron. Not my professional chef's apron, but a flowered thing better suited to a 1950s housewife. "Here," she said, holding it out like she was offering a great favor. "We can't have you looking unprofessional when you serve. And remember, the help eats in the kitchen after everyone's finished." The gravy spoon clattered against the pot. "Excuse me." "Oh, don't be difficult," she sighed. "You're here to cook, aren't you? That's what you do. So naturally, you'll serve and then eat with the other staff. We can't have you disrupting the dinner party atmosphere." 42 years of Thanksgivings flashed through my mind. Margaret and I hosting crowds of friends and family, everyone squeezed around our modest table. James learning to carve his first turkey, his face proud as he served others. The year after Margaret died, when our guests insisted I sit and let them serve me for a change. Now my son's wife wanted me to wear a costume and serve like hired help. "The turkey's done," I said quietly, removing my chef's apron. "The gravy needs another minute of stirring." Victoria barely noticed me stepping away from the stove, too busy instructing her actual hired servers on proper wine pouring etiquette. I moved to the counter where my turkey rested in its ceramic roasting pan, the pan that held 4 decades of family memories. "James," I called out, "could you come help me for a minute?" My son appeared, still adjusting his silk tie. "What's up, Dad? Everyone's getting seated." "Good," I said, lifting the roasting pan. "Then they can watch me leave with their dinner." His eyes widened as understanding dawned. "Dad, wait. Victoria didn't mean." "Yes, she did." I carefully wrapped my pan in the dish towels I'd brought from home. "And you let her. Your mother would be ashamed." Victoria chose that moment to return. "Why isn't the turkey being carved?" "The congressman's wife is all ready." "What are you doing?" "Taking my turkey home," I said calmly. "Along with my gravy, my family recipes, and my self-respect." "You can't." She actually stamped her foot like a child. "Our guests are waiting. What will people think?" "They'll think," I said, heading for the door, "that you should have remembered who taught your husband to cook before you decided his father belonged in the service kitchen." James moved to block my path. "Dad, please, we can fix this. Victoria will apologize." "No, son. Some things can't be fixed with apologies. Some things just show you who people really are." I looked at Victoria, who was rapidly shifting from outrage to panic as she realized 30 hungry guests were about to discover there was no main course. "By the way, that gravy needs constant stirring for another 3 minutes, or it'll separate. But I'm sure a talented hostess like you already knows that." The look of horror on her face confirmed what I'd suspected. She'd never made gravy in her life. Diana's voice carried from the dining room. "Victoria, darling, is there a problem with dinner?" Victoria grabbed my arm, her perfect manicure digging in. "You can't embarrass us like this. The congressman's here, the club president." I gently but firmly removed her hand. "Then I suggest you order pizzas. I hear they deliver to the service entrance." James made one last attempt. "Dad, think about what you're doing. This will cause a huge scandal." "No, son. The scandal was letting your wife treat your father like a servant. The scandal was forgetting every Thanksgiving dinner your mother and I made with love, not for show. The scandal was choosing status over family." I walked out through the grand foyer, past confused guests and elaborate flower arrangements. Behind me, I could hear Victoria's voice rising in panic as she tried to explain to her mother why the kitchen staff was leaving with the main course. The security guard at the gate, there to protect the neighborhood's precious property values, actually tipped his hat as I drove past. Maybe he dealt with the residents' pretensions before. At home, I set the turkey on my modest dining table, still in Margaret's roasting pan. The house felt empty, but not as empty as the relationship with my son had become. My phone started buzzing. James, Victoria, even Diana calling to alternately demand and plead for my return. I turned it off and carved myself a plate. The turkey was perfect, as always. Margaret's recipe never failed. As I ate my solitary Thanksgiving dinner, I thought about family, about traditions, about the difference between having class and just having money. The fog came quickly. By the next morning, my scandalous behavior had become the talk of Victoria's social circle. My phone showed 47 missed calls and dozens of text messages, ranging from James' apologetic pleas to Victoria's thinly veiled threats about damaging the family's reputation. Diana had apparently told everyone at her country club that I'd had a senior moment and needed to be evaluated for dementia. The irony of her trying to save face by declaring me mentally incompetent wasn't lost on me. I was making coffee when my doorbell rang. Standing there was Sarah, my old sous chef from the restaurant days, holding a pie. "Heard you finally stood up to the princess," she said, walking past me into the kitchen. "Took you long enough." Sarah had met Victoria exactly once, at the wedding, and had immediately seen through the polished facade. "That one's got champagne taste and beer knowledge," she'd warned me. "And she looks at you like you're the help." We sat at my kitchen table, eating pie and drinking coffee. Sarah had retired 2 years after me, but still catered occasionally for select clients. "You know what really gets me?" I said, pushing my plate away. "James used to love cooking. Every Sunday, we try new recipes together. Now he acts like being in the kitchen is beneath him." "Money changes people," Sarah shrugged. "Or rather, people change themselves for money. How's the princess handling her first major social disaster?" I checked my phone, which had started buzzing again. According to these messages, she's telling everyone I had a breakdown and ruined her party out of jealousy over her success. Success. Sarah snorted. That woman wouldn't know success if it came with a Michelin star. Remember when she tried to tell you how to make hollandaise at the wedding reception? The memory made me smile despite everything. Victoria had insisted on supervising the catering, only to demonstrate she didn't know the difference between hollandaise and mayonnaise. My doorbell rang again. This time it was Amanda, James's younger sister, with her husband Mike and their 2 kids. "Dad," she said, hugging me tight. "I heard what happened. James called me, trying to get me to talk sense into you." She pulled back, grinning. "I told him the only senseless thing was letting his wife treat you like hired help." The kids, Tommy and Lisa, immediately raided their favorite grandfather's cookie jar, while Amanda and Mike joined us at the table. "You should see the damage control happening on social media," Mike said, pulling out his phone. "Victoria's posted this long thing about family challenges and supporting loved ones through difficult times. Makes it sound like you're having some kind of crisis." Amanda rolled her eyes. Meanwhile, she had to order catering from that fancy hotel downtown to save her precious dinner party. Cost her $3,000 for last-minute service. "Good," Sarah said firmly. "Let her learn the hard way that real cooking comes from love, not a platinum card." The kids came back with their cookies, and Tommy looked up at me seriously. "Grandpa, Mom says Aunt Victoria was mean to you. Want you to put frogs in her purse next time." "Thank you, buddy, but no frogs needed." I ruffled his hair. Sometimes the best response is just to walk away with your dignity and your turkey. The afternoon brought more visitors. Several of my old restaurant staff, who'd heard the story through Sarah, stopped by with dishes and support. My neighbor Helen brought her famous casserole and some neighborhood gossip about Victoria's frantic calls to every upscale caterer in town. "Hershey even tried to claim it was her turkey you took," Helen chuckled. "Until someone asked her for the recipe and she couldn't even describe the ingredients." Around 4, James showed up alone. He looked tired, his expensive suit replaced by the casual clothes he used to wear when we cooked together. "Dad," he started, then stopped, looking around at the gathering of friends and family in my kitchen. I'm sorry." "For what exactly?" I asked quietly. "For letting your wife treat me like a servant? For forgetting every Thanksgiving we shared? Or for not having the courage to stand up for what's right?" He slumped into an empty chair. "For all of it. Victoria's been difficult since yesterday. She's worried about her social standing, about what people will think." "And what do you think, James?" Amanda cut in sharply. Because from where I'm sitting, you let your wife humiliate our father to impress her country club friends. It's complicated, he muttered. No, I said, it's actually very simple. Family is about respect, not status. Your mother and I taught you that. Or at least we thought we did. Sarah stood up, her chair scraping the floor. I should get going. James, before I leave, let me tell you something. Your father was one of the most respected chefs in 3 states. He trained dozens of successful restaurateurs. But more importantly, he was a man who taught his children that character matters more than appearances. Think about that while you're eating your wife's catered dinners. After everyone left, James and I sat in silence. Finally, he spoke. Victoria's mother is talking about sending you to a specialist. To prove you're unstable. I laughed without humor. Of course she is. Heaven forbid they admit the real problem is their own snobbery. What do you want me to do, Dad? I want you to remember who you are, son. Not who Victoria and her mother want you to be. The week after Thanksgiving brought an unexpected development. Amanda forwarded me a social media post from one of Victoria's dinner guests, the congressman's wife, of all people. She had shared a lengthy reflection about class, respect, and the treatment of elders in modern society, ending with a pointed reference to a recent dinner party where an accomplished chef was asked to serve rather than join the table. The post went viral in local social circles, creating exactly the kind of scandal Victoria had tried to avoid. Her carefully crafted narrative about my mental health crisis crumbled as more guests from that night shared their versions of events. One morning, I found Diana waiting on my porch, looking distinctly uncomfortable in her casual designer outfit, her version of dressing down. Mr. Wilson, she began stiffly, we need to discuss damage control. I continued watering my herb garden. No, Diana, we don't. There's nothing to control except your daughter's behavior. Be reasonable, she pressed. We're willing to overlook your outburst. Victoria will even make a public statement about family reconciliation. All you need to do is attend her dinner and play along. I set down my watering can. Play along. You mean pretend that treating people like servants based on your perceived social status is acceptable. You're being dramatic. Victoria merely wanted a proper formal dinner service. Then she should have hired proper servers, not expected her father-in-law to play one to impress her friends. Diana's perfectly maintained facade cracked slightly. You don't understand our world. Position, appearances, they matter. Victoria has worked hard to establish herself in society. No, I corrected, you don't understand my world. In my world, respect is earned through character, not purchased with credit cards. Family means more than social standing. The country club board is meeting next week, she said, as if this should concern me. Victoria's position as social chair could be compromised. I thought of Margaret, of how she'd laugh at the idea of country club politics being a real problem. Then perhaps she'll learn that true class has nothing to do with club memberships. Diana left in a huff, but her visit triggered a flood of memories. I remembered teaching James to make his first sauce, his small hands carefully stirring as I explained the importance of patience. How had that eager boy become a man who stood silent while his wife relegated his father to the service kitchen? Sarah called that evening with interesting news. Remember Lucy, that young chef I mentored? She was at the Hendersons' dinner party last night. Apparently, Victoria tried to take credit for your turkey recipe at previous gatherings. Lucy called her out on it, asked her to explain the brining process in detail. I could imagine Victoria's reaction. Let me guess, she couldn't. Better, Sarah chuckled. She claimed it was a family secret she couldn't share. Then Mrs. Henderson mentioned she had your actual recipe from that charity cookbook the restaurant published years ago. The cookbook had been Margaret's idea. All proceeds go into the local food bank. Victoria wouldn't have known about it. It wasn't the kind of publication that impressed country club members. James came by the next day, looking troubled. Victoria's been put on probation at the club. Mom says it's your fault. No. I corrected. It's Victoria's fault. Actions have consequences, son. Your mother taught you that. He wandered into the kitchen, where I was preparing lunch. His eyes fell on the familiar tools, the organized workspace, the worn cookbook stand Margaret had given me decades ago. I miss this, he said quietly. Remember when we used to make Sunday dinner together? I remember. Before designer kitchens and country club politics became more important than family meals. He picked up a whisk, turning it thoughtfully. Victoria never cooks, you know. Everything's catered or ordered in. She says cooking is for domestic staff. And what do you say? He was silent for a long moment. I say I'm hungry for real food. For family dinners that aren't about impressing people. I started pulling ingredients from the pantry. Then put on an apron. Your mother's lasagna recipe takes about 2 hours. As we cooked, something of the old James emerged. He remembered the little tricks I'd taught him, the importance of tasting as you go, the way cooking with love makes everything taste better. Victoria called twice, but he let it go to voicemail. Amanda stopped by with the kids just as the lasagna was coming out of the oven. The kitchen filled with family noise, with real laughter, with the kind of warmth no designer showcase could match. Uncle James, Tommy exclaimed. Are you cooking again? Can you make those chocolate cookies like before? James looked at his nephew, then at me. Maybe next time, buddy, if Grandpa's willing to teach me again. That evening, after everyone left, James helped me clean up. Victoria's planning a big party, he said. She wants to prove the Thanksgiving incident was just a misunderstanding. And what do you want? He stared at the dish towel in his hands, the same one he used as a child, standing on a stool to help dry dishes. I want to remember who I am, who we are as a family. The next day, Victoria appeared at my door, perfectly coiffed despite the winter wind. We need to talk about, she announced, walking in uninvited. No, we don't. I won't be attending. Don't be difficult, she snapped. This is important. The club president will be there, and after that horrible Thanksgiving scene. Victoria, I interrupted, let me be clear. I'm not a prop for your social climbing. I'm not staffed to be hidden away. I'm your husband's father, and until you understand the difference, we have nothing to discuss. James agrees we need to present a united front, she tried. Does he? Or does he just not want to face your tantrum if he disagrees? Her face flushed. How dare you? After everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me, Victoria? Except try to diminish me to elevate yourself. I've maintained our family's social position. I've given James connections, opportunities. No. I said firmly, you've given him an empty house full of unused appliances and a wife who thinks his father belongs in the service kitchen. She left in tears, but they weren't tears of understanding. They were tears of frustrated entitlement. That evening, James called. Victoria told me what happened. She says you were cruel to her. Was I? Or was I honest? He was quiet for a moment. She's talking about spending party in Aspen instead. Says she needs to recover from the stress. And what do you want for party, son? Another long pause. I want my family back. I want Sunday dinners and real conversations and food made with love. I want. Yes. I'd want to remember how to be proud of who I am, not what I appear to be. Then come home, I said simply. The kitchen's always open. Morning dawned clear and cold. Victoria had indeed fled to Aspen with her mother, posting carefully curated photos of their luxury ski resort stay. James, for the first time in 3 years, was in my kitchen, wearing his old apron and helping me prepare party dinner. Amanda arrived early with the kids and Mike, bringing the same green bean casserole her mother had always made. Sarah came bearing her famous pies, and several of my old restaurant crew dropped by with dishes and good wishes. "It's like the old days," Amanda said, watching Tommy help James knead bread dough. "Remember how Mom used to let us all help, even when we made a mess?" The kitchen was warm with memory and love. Flour dusting the counters, familiar recipes coming together without designer appliances or imported ingredients. This was real cooking, real family. Around noon, my doorbell rang. To everyone's surprise, it was Mrs. Henderson from the country club, holding a covered dish. "Hope you don't mind," she said warmly. "I brought your turkey recipe, the one from the charity cookbook. My daughter made it, and well, we thought you should know your legacy continues." James looked at the dish, then at me. The charity cookbook. I remember helping Mom test those recipes. We spent weeks getting everything perfect. "Yes," I said quietly, because she believed good food should be shared, not used as a status symbol. Mrs. Henderson stayed for coffee, sharing stories about her own father, who had been a baker. "You know," she said before leaving, "the club board met yesterday. Victoria's resignation letter was accepted. Something about taking time to reflect on family values." After she left, James sat heavily at the kitchen table. "I've been so blind, Dad. Chasing status, letting Victoria dictate everything. I lost myself." "Not lost," I corrected, "just temporarily misplaced. The real you was always there, under all those designer suits and country club manners." The afternoon brought more visitors. Neighbors, old friends, even some of James's former cooking buddies from college. My modest house, filled with the kind of genuine warmth no amount of expensive decorating could create. Late that evening, after everyone had gone home laden with leftovers, James helped me with the dishes. Like old times, no words were needed, just the comfortable rhythm of father and son working together. "Victoria wants a divorce," he said finally. "Says I'm choosing a lower path by reconnecting with my working class roots." I dried a plate, considering my response. "And how do you feel about that?" "Relieved," he admitted. "I've been living her version of success, not mine. I forgot that real wealth isn't about crystal stemware and country club memberships. Your mother would be proud of you right now." He smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. "Think she'd still be proud if I told you I'm considering opening a small restaurant? Nothing fancy, just good food made with love, like you taught me. She'd be ecstatic. And I know a few old chefs who might be willing to consult." On New Year's Eve, James officially moved out of the mansion, taking only his old cooking equipment and family photos. Victoria's lawyer sent threatening letters about social damage and reputation management, which we filed away without response. Sarah helped James find a small place near my house, and together we started planning his restaurant. He named it Margaret's Kitchen. Simple, honest, like the food it would serve. The local paper ran a small piece about it. Local chef returns to roots, from country club to community kitchen. Victoria's mother apparently had a fit when she saw it, but by then, neither James nor I cared about their opinions. Tommy and Lisa became regular fixtures in both our kitchens, learning family recipes just as their father and aunt had years ago. Real traditions, passed down with love and flour-dusted hands. One evening, as we tested recipes for James's new menu, he looked around my kitchen. Nothing fancy, just well-used tools and warm memories, and smiled. "You know what, Dad? That Thanksgiving turkey was the best thing Victoria ever made me do." "How so?" "It made me choose between appearing successful and actually being happy. Best decision I ever made was watching you walk out with that turkey." I thought about that turkey, about 42 years of Thanksgivings, about the difference between golden fixtures and golden memories. "Next Thanksgiving," I said, "let's smoke the turkey. Something new for a new chapter." "Perfect," James agreed. "And Dad, this time, We'll all eat together.